Unser Politikblog. We are in the castle garden of Karlsruhe, close to the Constitutional Court. It is May the 29th of the year 2010. The human rights activist Sarah Luzia Hassel-Reusing has today filed a constitutional complaint against a law which is going to give huge taxpayer-financed guarantees for credits which would benefit the creditors of the other Euro member countries in case that they might be at risk for default. And it's the first point is it is unclear if this law would allow to give 123 billions of euros for all Euro member countries together who would be in risk of default, or for each of them. The second point is, it has gone so far through both chambers of the parliament that it has been completely impossible that all members of the national parliament have realized the whole content of this law. Thirdly, the conditions for the loans to which the guarantees would be connected would be made by the European Commission and by the International Monetary Fund. There is no content in the treaties of the European Union which would allow to have these conditions for the credits been drafted by the International Monetary Fund, especially not Article 122, which shall be the legal basis for these things. And neither the public nor the members of the parliament have seen the complete and completely formulated EU guidelines or treaties or regulations which are going to be made. How these things have to be done. Which way would the credit conditions be made? And the IMF has a long tradition of making credit conditions which are violating human rights of national constitutions and universal human rights of the UN. For example, if you look at Niger, the IMF has prohibited the state of Niger to build up food reserves for the case that there might be at any time a food catastrophe, a big starvation. And even in the time of big starvation, the IMF has prohibited to Niger even to distribute food supplies which have come by the UN and other NGOs which wanted to help Niger. Or if you look at Brazil, the Fome Zero program of the president of Brazil was intended to help millions of Brazilian people out of hunger. But the IMF did not allow a debt moratorium for Brazil, so it could only help hundreds of thousands instead of millions. In an official document of the UN, the IMF and the World Bank are called the second biggest reasons which are blocking the implementation of the human right to food. And today, about 1 billion of people, every sixth human being is starving. And the IMF and the World Bank are the second biggest reasons for that. Much bigger reasons than all wars which are existing on the world together. Also in Europe, the IMF has a very tragic history of violations of human rights. For example, if you look at Romania or if you look at Greece, the IMF wants to enforce that they reform their public health insurance and their public pension insurance and make big cuts into against the pensionists and against the ill people, that they are getting less benefits. And there are cuts against the wages of the officers at Romania. And at Greece, only every fifth officer who is retiring now will be replaced by one new officer. And at Romania, only every seventh officer who is retiring will be replaced. So it's a clear sell-off of even of the public administration. This can only mean two things. One thing is that the states of Romania and of Greece will not have enough officers left to put through law and order anymore. Or it means that the IMF is paving the ground that even private corporations will get sovereign power in these countries. And now, if this law comes through, then the IMF will get the power to even enforce against highly indebted Euro member states that they will crunch their public health insurance and their pension insurance to a minimum, and that they will reduce their public administration to a minimum. So, if you know examples where, in which countries and when the IMF has put through credit conditions which are violating human rights of national constitutions, which are violating structural principles like rule of the law, like democracy of national constitutions, or which are violating universal human rights of the UN, then please tell it to Unser Politikblog, blog with a G at the end. We are collecting this data to stop the IMF from making credit conditions which are violating human rights. Many thanks.